Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend an apology dinner after my mother-in-law called me a bad mother at my son's funeral? I lost my son to congenital heart disease, and he did not survive the open heart surgery at the age of 1 year and 6 months. He was the greatest blessing I had in my life. Everyone kept telling me things will get easier with time. I know that no matter how much time goes by, I'll still be missing my baby and everything sweet about him. Mother-in-law and I were in constant conflict. Things always been bad between us, but in those months we reached our limit. She kept getting involved in my son's treatment and criticized every decision I made, claiming I didn't know how to handle my son's illness. We went low contact, but she kept causing issues occasionally. My husband was torn between our son's illness and his mother's issues. When my son passed away, she came to the funeral and caused a scene by arguing with me, knowing I had no energy for it. She used the fact that everyone was there so she could say it was my fault my son was born sick, and I didn't take care of him properly, that I didn't listen to her when she suggested other ways to treat his condition, and that I was the one who took their grandchild away from them and caused them heartache. She then loudly called me a bad mother. I had no idea how I kept my composure and kept standing on both feet. My mom and sisters responded by telling her to leave. My husband was sitting down crying. She then went to tell everyone I kicked her out as a way to hurt her further, and lied that I convinced my husband to ban her from visiting her grandson's grave. My husband later sent his side of family an email talking about my mother-in-law's behavior during and after our son's illness, and telling them he will no longer be seeing her. That had the family criticizing us, saying mother-in-law was just trying to do what was best for her grandbaby, and called us selfish for assuming we're the only ones struggling with this tragedy. We haven't seen his mom in 1 year and 8 months. I'm now 3 months pregnant. No one knew except my sister-in-law, brother-in-law's wife, but word got out, though we told her not to say anything. A week later, I had family members saying I was invited to a dinner hosted by mother-in-law so she could both apologize in front of the whole family and settle this issue before the baby's born. They said mother-in-law was regretful and offered to financially provide for her grandbaby, and they want to see that. I refused, but my husband surprisingly wants me to go. He had his grandparents calling me telling me that I'm a person with a good heart, and forgiveness is something I'm capable of giving. I told them I'll never be sitting at the same table with a person who called me a bad mother at my child's funeral. I still remember it vividly till this very day. My sister said this change of heart from mother-in-law is probably for the new baby. It could be, but I insisted I won't come. They're saying I'm making hard for everyone to move on and past this unresolved pain and should really go. Now for the top comments. Not day home. I work in nursing in ICU and I see people like your mother-in-law often. You were done so dirty, and no one, absolutely no one will understand what you and your husband went through and the kind of horrific choices you had to make. People like to think modern medicine can cure anything, and it's just not true. Treatments can be ugly, invasive, and even lethal, and I would never blame you for a second for trying anything possible to keep your baby in this world. I also wouldn't blame you for a second if you decided not to go through with some of these harsh treatments. There is no right answer in these situations. Only you get to decide. I'm so sorry for your loss, and that you had to go through that. Maybe I'm biased, because I see people like you at work, making decisions no one should ever have to make while getting yelled at by other family who won't even come to visit the freaking patient. Easy to throw stones when you don't have to make such heavy decisions. You are so within your rights to never forgive that woman. I hope the best for your current pregnancy, and I'm sure this little light will help remind you and your husband what familial love really is. I felt sick to my stomach reading this. The pure audacity of this woman is beyond words. I have 2 thankfully healthy boys, and imagining going through with them what you did with your son makes me want to cry. How heart-shatteringly lonely, lost, and utterly destroyed you and your husband must have felt with her acting like an idiot towards you, instead of being support you surely needed. She made your son's illness and tragic passing about herself, to posture in some weird way that if she had gotten to make the decisions, none of this would have happened. I'm assuming she's not a specialist doctor of some kind, so she had no footing to stand on. If she's a doctor, I'm at loss for words to describe how messed up that is too. I like the other poster suggestion. Make it clear to your husband that he is free to socialize with his mother, but it will never be in your shared home or in the presence of you or the baby. I feel this woman is unhinged enough to try to get grandparents' rights, Call CPS and you if you disagree with her on something. The money offers further manipulation to try and wrest even more control for herself. Oh, you won't let me actively undermine your parenting? No. No more money then. Not Day-Hall. Should be dead to me. F off into oblivion. My sister said this change of heart from mother-in-law is probably for the new baby. It absolutely is. She isn't sorry that she harassed stressed-out parents who are trying to manage the health care of a gravely ill baby. She isn't sorry that she berated a grieving mother at the baby's funeral. She is sorry that the consequences of her abhorrent behavior have led to her being denied access to a grandchild. There is absolute proof of this, and the fact that she wasn't sorry until she learned a new baby's on its way. Some things should not be forgiven, and frankly, her behavior falls into that category. You are not Day-Hall here, and should not compromise. The only thing that matters for the next 6 months are your health and stress levels, and both can be best managed by immediately removing from your life and one insisting on renewing contact with someone who abused you. You should tell your husband that no means no, and he's not to bring this up again. It's not up for discussion. Please also visit r/justknowmother-in-law for help on how to set boundaries and stick to them, and for the support you may need in doing so. First of all, thank you for taking the time to talk about my issue. I don't get enough people who can understand what I have been going through, especially now during my pregnancy. Some people expect me to be thrilled with no excuse like my pregnancy is supposed to erase or make up for my loss. It's the opposite. I worry too much over little issues, and to some it's normal, but I find myself stressing out all the time. I try to take it slow and continue with my therapy. I haven't directly talked to mother-in-law, but I have talked to everyone in the family. They keep saying she's sincere and wants nothing more than for us to be able to move past this conflict. I truly don't feel okay with the idea of having to sit with her at a dinner table after all she's said and done. No matter what her purpose is, I'm completely against it. My grief is still raw and I'm not ready to see her. I don't think I'll ever be. It might sound awful, but I'm not feeling I could give her what she wants. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to throw a party for my daughter's coming out? My female 44 mother died last week after a very long battle against cancer, and I'm completely devastated. She got pregnant with me after a very traumatic event, and despite the pressure from my grandparents and the trauma, she refused to have a termination. They threw her out when she was 16, with no money, no support, but that didn't deter her. And as far as I can remember, she has always been the greatest and most loving mother. She was my hero, my best friend, and I don't know how I will be able to overcome her death. 2 hours after my mother's death, my daughter Amélie, female 20, decided that it was the perfect time to come out to cheer me up. Her words, not mine. I must admit that I was very unsettled by the loss of my mother, but I still tried to tell her that I was happy for her. Maybe not as happy as she expected, but I really tried to show her my love and support because she's my baby, and I want her to be happy and to know that I love her. The next day, she came to me saying that she forgave me for my attitude, and that she wanted to talk about the preparations for a coming out party. I was a little confused, but I asked her when she wanted to throw that party, and she said the coming Friday. I told her it was not possible because it was the day of her grandmother's funeral, that we could do it the next week, but not now. She was silent for a solid minute, and then all hell broke loose. She starts screaming at me, telling me that I'm a bad mother, as rotten as my grandparents, that I don't support her because I'm a freaking homophobic, that her girlfriend was right, that I am a useless witch. I didn't even know that she had a girlfriend. I was so shocked I wasn't able to answer her, and it was my husband, alerted by the screams, who came and told her to leave our house immediately. Since that day, she refused to talk to me, my husband, or her brother. She doesn't answer our calls or messages, and she did not come to her grandmother's funeral. She told all her friends that I'm homophobic, that I've rejected her because of her true nature. All I can do is crying. I feel empty and heartbroken. Now I feel like an a-hole because I can't help but think that I was too focused on my pain, that I was not supportive enough, and maybe I should have made an effort and said yes for that party because it was important for my daughter. Everything is very confused right now, and I really need a different point of view. Not a-hole. You are grieving and you wanted to throw a party? She sounds like a very self-centered person. The worst. Not a-hole. Even if it wasn't a funeral, Are you obligated to throw a party about it anyway? I would say the expectation is that you accept her. She doesn't need a party. Not Dayhall. And when are you kicking out your 20-year-old ungrateful daughter? She'll spin it as homophobic. And who freaking cares? She's already done that. Your daughter, by what you describe, is a self-centered little brat who needs to be out on the street to see who really supports her. She forgave your attitude? WTF? Your mother just died and she moves the spotlight to her. Ridiculous. If my kid pulled out some BS like this, I'd give them 2 suitcases on the sidewalk with their clothes already packed. My daughter doesn't live with us, but we were helping her paying her rent because she lost one of her jobs and money's tight. Husband wants us to stop helping her. I know that he's right, and we will surely stop helping her. But I can't help but feeling bad. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I won't be visiting his mother for Mother's Day? My husband is gone for military duties, and he called me today to ask if I would be going over next weekend to visit his mother for Mother's Day, to which I said no. Then I had to rehash what happened last year for my first Mother's Day. Backstory. Last year was my first Mother's Day. My baby girl was born September 2019, so May 2020 was my first Mother's Day. During a pandemic. My husband spent the day with me, but his mother called him and complained that we had not gone over to her house for Mother's Day. I told him he was more than welcome to go, but the baby and I were staying home and hanging out and enjoying my first Mother's Day. He had gone to his mother's on Friday for Mexican Mother's Day. I ordered her Mother's Day card and flowers and he took them to her. She never acknowledged the gifts, to me anyway. On the day of Mother's Day, the only people to contact me from my husband's family were my father-in-law and brother-in-law, and they both wished me a happy first Mother's Day. I was beyond grateful and expressed that to them. Shortly after Mother's Day, mother-in-law called me and told me she was upset that I didn't go to her house on Mother's Day. I politely told her that I too was hurt that she didn't even acknowledge me on my first Mother's Day. I also told her how the year prior when I was pregnant, she went out of her way to make comments to me about not being a mother yet when my father-in-law wished me happy almost Mother's Day. I was extremely hurt, but I kept it to myself. I had miscarried 2 babies prior to finally having my baby. I always felt like a mother. Her comments were hurtful. Mother-in-law then proceeded to tell me that she didn't need to acknowledge me on Mother's Day because I'm not her mother. I told her fair enough, but don't expect me or my child to celebrate you, because by your definition, you are not my mother, and you are not the mother of my child. She never apologized for her hurtful comments. We are cordial now a year later. But after that, I decided that I didn't want to spend any Mother's Day with her ever again. I brought this up to my husband, and he told me I need to suck it up, move on, and go over to his mom's. I said no. I am celebrating with my daughter and my own mother, and I have plans during the weekend anyway. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Enjoy your Mother's Day, Mama. Opie's husband seems a little controlling. Trying to force her to go over there just seems weird. Good on her for not going anyways, but this kind of raises some red flags about him. Opie's husband is a mama's boy who never cut the cord. That's going to continue to be a problem, so keep putting your foot down, Opie. He wants to sweep her horrible behavior under the rug so no one rocks the boat. She's an adult who needs to take accountability for her behavior. Not the a-hole. The problem here is your husband, not the a-hole. Yeah, I think the husband needs to stop sucking it up and finally let his balls drop. Not the a-hole. Opie, you do you, boo. Happy Mother's Day. Not the a-hole. You're celebrating with your own mother and your husband is responsible for his. Even if he isn't in town, you can send her flowers and a card, or call if that's available. That's what I suggested, that he could have flowers delivered to her. Send her a gift. Call her. Not my mother, not my responsibility. I'm responsible for one woman in Mother's Day, and that's my own mother. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law nobody forced her to come when she complained about my food? My sister-in-law and I got along really well when my husband and I first met and were first married. Then she took offense when I ended up missing her 30th birthday party because I already had pre-arranged, prepaid plans with a couple of my friends. To clarify, the party was not on her actual birthday. It was 2 weeks earlier, and so I didn't see any reason to check the date with her. but she could not accept me picking them over her, which is how she views it. Even my husband told her it wasn't fair to expect me to lose out, when it's not like I planned it on her actual birthday. But it hasn't been the same since. Ever since, whenever we're hosting my in-laws or whenever we bring food, she criticizes it. My husband and the rest of the family have called her out on being ungrateful. They have told her that she should let the party thing go, but she doesn't. My cooking or baking was never an issue before she got pissed about me not being there for her birthday. She used to ask me for recipes and would cook together for Christ's sake. This past weekend, we hosted a small dinner with family, both sides, to celebrate the impending arrival of mine and my husband's first child. Kind of like a baby shower, but smaller and much less fuss. Sister-in-law was going off on the food again, and I had enough. I told her nobody was forcing her to come if she hated my food so much, and maybe we would all be better off without her constantly crap-talking me through everything, even such a happy occasion. She was pissed. She was so pissed. Even more when only one relative, another sister-in-law, came to her defense or called me out. It's now created tension between the family, and I've been called a witch, an a-hole, a petty witch, all sorts of other stuff, and I feel bad for lashing out the way I did. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Sounds like you handled it perfectly. In the future, her choices are show up and shut up, you win. Stay home, you win. Show up and run her mouth again, in which case you can laugh. Roll your eyes in front of everyone and say, there she goes again. To make things even more fun, start a betting pool for how long it will take her to complain. Or if she has enough standard insults/tells, start a bingo card. The first person who gets bingo using her insults wins. Not the hell, by the way. If family members don't come to your defense when she insults you, they can't complain when you stick up for yourself. Where's your husband in all this? Why isn't he laying down the rules of behavior with his own sister in your own home? I'd stop inviting her. About time she experienced some consequences. Not the hell. This. What is your husband doing to stop this? It's his family, so he needs to make sure this harassment ends. Not the hell.